Steve.
And I'm Tracy.
And we are
the Partners at War.
It has been an interesting couple months.
Yes, it has.
A very interesting couple months. We've not put a video out in a while. It's been the longest time since we started this. We did think when this whole coronavirus started and
The whole stay at home
started, we'd have time to get a ton of videos done. And then it happened, and well, we're both educators.
And we were very wrong.
Very wrong. Tracy's a teacher, I'm a school administrator, and I can say we've both been busier now than we've ever been.
Learning how to e-learn and remote learning and teaching from home from a little screen. It's been very time consuming.
So we do apologize for something not being out. Hopefully this is settling down a little bit and we can get back to making some videos. We were answering questions in our previous videos from viewers, and one of the questions that we've got, and we've seen in multiple websites, is if I'm brand new to the game, how do I pick an army?
Yeah. Or I'm trying to decide between this army and this army. Where do I go from here? It's a tough question to answer, especially if you don't have access to them before you buy them. It's an investment and people want to choose wisely.
One of the main goals we had for creating this channel was to try to help people that are interested in joining in this great hobby to join in. So we thought, why don't we go through the armies that we have and do some quick videos just talking about what attracted us to those armies.
A little bit about this one, a little bit about that one. We're not professional analysts on these armies or anything. It's just what is our experience and what might you be able to take away and say, oh, well, I like that also, or yeah, that fits my play style.
Of the 8 battle tomes in order, we have 6 of them painted that we've played.
That we've actually
have and one more that we're working on. That's just an order, so we've got a lot of armies.
So there are a lot of things to take into consideration when you're going to choose an army, and there are things that are important to us that may not be important to other people, and things that are important to others that might not be important to us. One thing is lore. We are not lore heavy people. We were more about the tabletop part of the game as opposed to the background of the armies. But for some people, that is a really important part. It's just not something we know that much about.
Yeah, so we're not going to act like lore experts at all. If you are interested in an army through its lore, there's plenty of reading material out there that you can look into the lore. We might highlight some.
We'll mention a couple
some things you might want to know before you jump into an army based around the lore. But the other one that I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time talking about is looks, because you can see pictures, you can see images, and if you're interested in an army, you've probably already seen them.
Right. Watch battle reports, and you can see them right there on the tabletop.
Absolutely. Go to Games Workshop store, and you can see images of all of those.
Right.
So we won't spend a lot of time on lore and looks. Might highlight some
things I liked, things I didn't, but yeah.
Features.
Yeah.
Then we're going to start talking about play style.
Play style. This is important. However, if you are a brand new player, you don't really know what your play style is. I've been playing for just about 2 years, and I'm just now kind of figuring out what I like to play. So you may lean less heavy on this part, but if you've played tabletop game before and you know your play style, we definitely want to kind of show you also what the armies are heavy in or light in. So some things we're going to take into consideration for play style. Whether it's a shooty army, if it's, what else? Magic, yeah. Does it use magic? Does it not? Some people really don't want to play an army that doesn't use magic. And then other people say, yeah, I don't want to worry about that. Something else might be more important to me.
All right, it's killing ability. Is it somebody who can just bring the pain? Tankiness. Some things that bring the pain die really easily.
Yeah.
So
glass cannon is
glass cannon.
Yeah.
Some things are glass cannons. But is the army tanky?
Is it going to stay on the table? So is it going to be able to take some hits and not just get blown off really easy?
Flexibility. Are there some things that the army is going to allow you to adjust your game strategic-wise throughout? That's personally what I look for in an army, and that's something we'll talk about with each of the armies.
Right. What kind of shenanigans can you get away with?
And then some other things, such as, can the army summon? There's some other things you might want to know about each of these armies. And then the big one, competitiveness. we're not competition experts. We go to a lot of tournaments. But if we leave a tournament 3-2 and we played well, we had a good time. It's the people there we're there to meet.
Yes, absolutely.
But there are individuals that will say they're not competitive and they're not fully being honest with themselves because they have a hard time enjoying games that they don't win. Definitely, some of the armies, if you really want to be competitive, might not be for you. That's something I think you need to know.
Are you just playing for fun? Or am I going to get my army because I'm going to a local game store and I just want to have fun with my buddies? Or am I going to want to go to competitions and just kind of hold my own? Or am I going to want to win? And I used to say, oh, this is such a fun game. This is such a fun game. And it is. It's a blast. But you know what? I hate losing. I hate it. And
you don't want to say hate losing. You hate getting just walloped.
Okay.
It's just
that's
feeling it's a waste of 2 hours.
I do not like feeling like I didn't have a chance at that. And part of that is me, just in my learning process. But I have to be honest with myself. I cannot take a weak army and all of a sudden just start winning with it. I don't have enough background to know how to do that. So that's where we're leaning, not necessarily to help you win every big tournament that you go to. That's not it.
If you're a tournament player and you're thinking I'm going to give you, or Tracy's going to give you any advice on what's the army to win the tournament, that's not this. We're just going to talk about who can be in like a tier A competitive, and then a middle, and then a bottom. That's that's kind of where it is. And plenty of people are going to disagree with us on some of that.
Right.
And if you do, be polite about it, but tell us the difference in the comments, and everybody will read the comments and hopefully learn more. We might highlight a couple of the things in some of the armies. For instance, one of the armies that'll be on this list today is very expensive real-world dollars to get into. And those are the type of things, if we know something about an army, we'll highlight that also.
Right.
Our travel, to be able to take an army from point A to point B if you're going to a tournament. Some of them are very easy, other ones are very challenging to get that done.
Right. So
those are just some things we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Without that, let's get going. Talk about the first army on our list. Daughters of Kain.
Daughters was my second army. Once I had played and I decided I liked the game, I started...
But you're trying to get in your butt whipped?
A little bit. So I wanted something that was going to be a little bit more competitive. And I also wanted something that was more my personality as opposed to playstyle, because at that point I didn't know what playstyle was. So I went with Daughters of Kain because I wanted an all-girl army, and I wanted something that represented me. So I bought that.
A bloodthirsty.
Okay, so I didn't know that at first. I just wanted an all-girl army, right? And I thought, oh, look at these pretty models. And then I got the book and started reading it, and they are awful.
While we're not going to talk about lore about everybody, it is something to highlight with this army. If you see order and you think good, and you go with the Daughters of Kain and you start reading the lore, you realize if there was evil versus good, this is the evil side.
Yeah.
They're order. They're not good. Just something you might want to know going into this. They bathe in the blood of their victims. They're not. That
was something I had to wrap my head around when after I got the Battle Tome, I got the models and I started reading it and I thought, ooh, can I really play this? And I could. Yeah. Because, it was a little bit more competitive and I really liked that. But just something to know going into it.
Looks, you can see the images, definitely a unique style to these.
Yes.
Absolutely unique style.
You have everything from the snakes, you have the flying canary, you have the witch elves, I have one here. So you have a lot of options with the looks of your army.
And one of the best models, Morathi, in the entire game.
Right, I believe so. They definitely offer a lot of different models, but you're going to choose the ones I think that best fit your playstyle.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some of the playstyle aspects. Speed, they can be fast.
They can be fast.
They can be very fast.
The snakes move 8 inches. And that's great.
And yeah, they can get across the board, which is a very good thing, and it's very important in this game, speed, a lot.
Yeah.
Magic, Morathi appears to be this very powerful spellcaster, just has always failed for her.
I honestly have no luck with Morathi spells.
No.
The Medusa also is a spellcaster, so you do have a little variety of magic in there.
Tracy personally does not roll well in the hero phase with spells. That's just been a routine aspect of it. So they do have some very good
Apparently,
spellcasting.
that's my play style.
Rolling bad. They do have some good magic possibility.
They do.
But
They're not magic heavy.
For Tracy.
They're definitely not
No,
magic
not
heavy.
magic heavy. Shooting. The Canaries have a shot and all that, but don't get this army if you want to be a shooty army and sit across the board and shoot people. And I know somebody's going to say, well, this one unit can do something. When we talk about a shooty army, we're talking about somebody that can dominate a play style. By that, that's not this army.
Right.
That's not this army.
With this army, you are going to be in melee, and that is going to be your strength.
Which does bring up, they can be one of the most killy armies in the game.
And it's fun. It is. It's fun to march 40 witch elves up and just...
And get 120 or 160
I took out
dice.
Nagash with witch elves. I did.
Just whoop, off the table. That was in a tournament, right?
Yeah, it was.
And he wasn't happy. No. He wasn't happy. But they're not tanky.
No, they do not hold up. You get that big hit, but as soon as they hit back, you're off the table.
And that would get into, you'll hear about people winning major tournaments with daughters. And if you're a new player and you think, I'm buying a powerful army, realize it takes a very good strategic player to maximize the potential of this army. If you get hit first, you can lose a quarter of your army like that.
Right off the bat.
So this is not an army you buy, put on the tabletop, and are just immediately competitive with.
Right.
If you're a new player, give it some time, because you could lose a lot of games early on against people with experience in this game.
Yes.
That can happen with every army, but I think this army is susceptible because everybody thinks it's so powerful.
I got it, and I went to a few local tournaments where the people I played against had never played against daughters, and I was just walking over everybody. I felt, oh, I am all powerful. And then I went to a tournament with people who actually had played against them before, and it kind of went the other way. So it's not an overpowered army. It has to be a well-played army. But you have all the tools you need if you are,
There's only a couple different builds, so your flexibility across the whole army, I think, somewhat limited. We don't have to get into all the different builds.
Right.
You'll find some of the armies have a lot of different ways you can design them. We'll talk about a couple of the other ones today that it almost gets confusing at times over which build to have.
Right.
This one doesn't necessarily have that. There seems to be only a couple different builds that really are out there that people regularly use. And you're not summoning, correct?
No. Once you're dead, you're dead.
You're dead. You're not reviving. You're not summoning.
Not a lot of healing going on.
That's about it. So for the person that likes the look, wants to have a good, fun, competitive, but somewhat limited in strategy army, and I know some people are going to disagree with that, but compared to some other armies, we're talking to new players, this might be the army for you.
It's a fairly straightforward army. You're going to be able to put it on the table and play it.
I think if you're going to start here, you're going to need some help, though, from a player with experience or something like that. Give it some time. If
you're going to have to just put in a lot of games.
In a lot of games. I agree. All right, that's the Daughters of Kain. Fire Slayers. Well, going from scantily clad bloodthirsty witches to scantily clad kind of crazed dwarves.
Yeah, so if you like naked, big-haired guys, this would be your army.
Witches versus Fire Slayers, not a lot of clothes on the battlefield.
You have to get good at painting skin with either of those armies.
This is the second army we're doing, and we're going to be doing all of the armies we've got, all four, and just realized we have to add another thing in, and that is, I think it's early enough to add this in, painting for brand new players.
Yeah.
Both of these two armies, if you want to have a good paint job, you have to be able to paint skin, and skin can be one of the most difficult things to paint. So I would say these are not the easiest armies to paint, but they're not, don't let that stand in your way.
Right.
But
and I will say with the new contrasts, I painted this entire army contrast, and it was quick, and it was really fairly easy.
We're not going to talk about the lore. I think what it looks-wise would attract our son Dwarge, which makes sense with what I was going to say. He loves dwarves.
He does. In the fantasy world, that is his go-to.
That is what he wants to play. If he's role-playing, I want to play a dwarf. If he's on the computer with an option, I'm playing a dwarf. And this was his best option. you can go KO. That's
Yes.
another dwarf
Yes.
option. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. But more traditional dwarves with axes, this is the closest thing in the game that's currently really being supported.
I will say I have a hard time telling them apart. To me, all of the different units and the different types of fire slayers, they all look the same to me. So when I am playing against George, I'll say something like, now what's that group again? Or what do they do again? Because I really can't tell them apart.
They're somewhat bland. Now, a well-painted fire slayer army has a good theme on the tabletop.
They look
but,
really nice on the table. It's
but-
just as an opponent, I have a hard time telling them apart.
You do, but if you're going to buy them, I personally am not a big fan of the aesthetic with the fire slayers. That would be an issue that does kind of stand in my way of wanting to even play them here. It's one reason I haven't played them yet. But to each his own.
Right.
That's,
Aesthetically, because they have a lot of other good points.
A lot of other great points too. Play style. Well, speed.
That would probably be their con. Is
Yeah.
that they're kind of chunky and
They're
slow.
They are very, very slow. But a bigger negative than that is there's no magic.
Right. And that's from both the play side, offense and defense. Because you don't have any magic users, you also can't defend against the other magic users. You can't dispel
I think
things.
that's the bigger impact. Because you do have prayers, they do have things that they can do during the hero phase that are similar to magic.
Buff themselves up.
But dispelling or unbinding,
Yes.
it's gone. And that can often give the opponent an unfair edge when it comes to spellcasting.
When they're going to put out, 5 endless spells
Yes.
and you can't do anything about it.
Oh yeah,
That's
the
kind of
new
a big
Seraphin
deal.
with all the bound spells and Lord Croak.
Yeah.
I haven't played him yet, but I'm kind of salivating thinking about that matchup.
Right.
Shooting, close range shooting can actually be very strong, but they're not a shooty army. They don't shooty army. We're going to kind of define as you have some distance, you can have something sit back and start eating away
And
the enemy.
actually do,
Yes.
quite a bit of damage.
Force the enemy to move out of its position, because if it sits there, you're going to continuously barrage them.
Right.
That's not these guys.
No, these are very melee, hand-to-hand.
Very similar to the daughters that way.
Strong,
I would
yes.
say.
Yes, yeah.
Very similar to the daughters. Killy, they can be very killy.
Yes, they can, and I know that for a fact.
I don't think they're as killy. Some people are going to disagree with this, and I haven't done the math, but my original thought, my perception right now, maybe not as killy as like a witch elf, with a bunch of attacks, but they're substantially killy. But when you throw in the tankiness of them,
Right.
and and
Because
some
they're
of
going
the-
to be there to kill you
Yes.
turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, as opposed to somebody who hits hard and then glass cannon is off the table.
And some of their killiness is also about which lodge you take and the ability to take multiple attacks. There's some games thing going
Yeah,
on
you
there.
have some-
But we don't want to get too much into all the different things in the battle tomes.
Right.
Flexibility, for me, honestly, it's one reason I'm not attracted to this army. I don't see this as being a strategically very flexible army. If I'm playing Fire Slayers, I can kind of predict where they're going to come and what they're going to do. Now, some of those things, they do tremendously well.
Right?
But it's not, you've got the one guy that can tunnel and bring people up on the backside. But other than that, I don't think they're that flexible of an army. Now, I'm going to say something like that, and there's going to be definitely people who disagree. I'm asking people to be openly honest. Not every army's great in everything.
Right. Everybody has some pros and cons, and speed and flexibility, I think, are definitely downfalls of this particular army, but tankiness, hard hitter, those are good.
Those are
definitely
some very good
pros,
things.
pros on there.
They have some of the best support units in the game. Some of the units that support the Fire Slayers. They have some units that you'll see on every list there ever is. And they actually changed the rules on one of them because it was so powerful. So there are some definite strengths here to get in competitiveness. This is if I'm into Fire Slayers and I'm going to a highly competitive tournament, I'm still thinking I can go 4-1. I mean, and
3-2 is not
3-2 is
unreasonable.
I'd be disappointed if I didn't hit 3-2. They are a not elite competitive army, but they're a very strong competitive army.
Yes.
There's just some matchups they don't match up well with.
Right.
But if you want to get an army that's pretty straightforward for a new player, pretty straightforward, you're going to be very strong going to local game stores and playing, and you're going to be able to go into a tournament and still
And hold your own.
and hold your own.
Without too much of like the witch elves having to play and play and play and play and play. These guys are very
I
straightforward.
think this is a good choice for somebody getting into the game.
I agree.
The most disappointing thing for me in the game is I might every once in a while bring up GW, lower the cost on these guys to make it that these actually are something that make builds again. You don't see too many Magma Droths, so I just would like to see the Magma Droths
They are really cool models.
be in the game more.
Yeah.
That's about it. Ease to transport. Easy to transport.
Yes.
And so I think this is a good army for a new player if they're attracted to the looks. I personally am not. But if you are, I think it's a good army for you. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think they're very straightforward.
George loves them. And when we had our home 2,500 point tournament, all 4 of us played our armies. George won it with the Fire Slayers.
He did.
Over her Flesh Eater Court.
Pretty handedly.
Over my Seraphin. And over Vince's Stormcast. George won it with his Fire Slayers. So they can be a very good army.
They are.
Next up, Idoneth Deepkin. And I still have to put him together and get him painted for George. This is our son George's other army. Looks, eels that are on a magical wave and elves on a magical wave. It was a little too out there for us initially.
Right. Originally when we first were choosing. But then we started seeing the models.
Well, I think what more happened is we had a friend who had a beautifully painted army that he wanted to get rid of and had a price I couldn't pass up. So we bought it, started reading the lore, and it really became much more attractive. That there's actually some good stuff in here lore-wise.
Right. And I think your first experience against the Idoneth game may have skewed your view of them.
Thank you, Brad. I still remember that, and I still have the scars. Now, looks-wise, outside of the lore, I don't think that was fully fair what I was saying, because if you just have looks itself, there are some beautiful models in that. This turtle is just amazing.
It is a gorgeous, gorgeous model.
Gorgeous model.
Their leaders are done so well.
And when he is done, he is just a gorgeous model. There are some beautiful models that are in this army. Let's talk about playstyle. Now, once again, we're really limited in our knowledge about this.
Right, we've only had them a little while. George has played them a couple times, and we've played against them very few times.
I do think one of the reasons I would warn new players to the game from getting into Idoneth is some of the major components of their playstyle are rather complex.
They are. You almost have to know how to play AOS first before you can figure out how to play Idoneth within it.
If you've been playing for a while, you understand the rules, you understand the phases, you understand all those basics, and you're looking for a new army, then I think you might be ready. I don't know, based upon the whole thing with the wave and turning those things that really help maximize their play, if it's the army for a brand new player, unless you're willing to play and really take the time to learn. Right. If you're with a supportive group.
If you have a group that you can play over and over and over again with them, and you can try different things.
They can also be a tough army to paint if you're brand new also, because the beauty of these models, you want to make them look amazing. It's one reason I still haven't gotten that box out and done him yet is I want to give him the time he's due. These are beautiful models. Speed, they're fast.
They are fast.
Like unbelievably fast.
Yeah, ridiculously so. Yes.
And being able to potentially, flexibility, being able to come in off the side of the tabletop with that speed and some other things. There's some amazing stuff that goes on here.
Yep.
Magic, my experience with this is pretty good.
I think so, yeah. I mean, they definitely have magic users.
They have magic users.
Wizards, yeah.
The games I've played where I've gotten beat by them, because I've never beat Idoneth, where magic was not the reason they won, so maybe it's some other strengths are overshadowing that. Shooting, all I've really faced is the eels that come in and shoot me with electricity and kick my butt. So
yeah, I wouldn't call it a shooting army, just from my limited experience with it. I wouldn't call it a shooting army.
If you want to play a shooting army, this would not be an attraction.
Right, if that is your play
style. I'm not saying you can't.
style.
It's not the reason you would play this army. Killing?
Oh, they can kill. They have an ability where they can come in, strike you first, and you're not going to be there to strike back.
So it can be incredibly killy. If that's what you're looking for, it's there. And guess what? It can also be tanky. We've got great saves. The eels have some good wounds. They can be hard to take off the table. It's a well-rounded package when it comes to just melee, right-in-your-face combat.
It is.
Flexible, definitely flexible. A lot of different things you can
Jumping around the board.
Jumping the board with how fast they are. Absolutely. They've got this great ability that you can only shoot the closest enemy. That is nullifying for many armies that are shooting armies.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in this book. This really is a good army that I wish personally I liked more beyond the lore. This is one that the lore gets in my way, but playstyle, I should fall in love with it. And maybe someday I will give it a chance.
Right.
But right now our son is. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
gonna
he's
let him
playing
play
it, so.
Is it for a brand new player? I don't know. I think you need some experience with this. There's a lot of beautiful models that you'll end up wanting to get, and they're not seeing the tabletop right now. Once again, GW, price adjustments. You did lower the sharks last time, and the sharks are gorgeous, but they're still not seeing the tabletop enough.
I will put in there transport of these a little bit more difficult. So if you're going to be traveling with them a lot, this is lots of little spiky things that stick out, balancing on these, you know, the little pieces that hold it to the base. It's a lot to take into consideration in terms of transport as well.
This is
It would be
a
worth
very
the
good-
time,
Yeah,
for
to learn how
sure.
to play
To put, if you're gonna only buy one army and you're like, where do I invest my money? If you like these guys and you're willing to put in the time to learn them as you're learning the game, I would recommend.
And I
it.
think there's enough options in the army that if you wanted to dedicate yourself to one army, you could dedicate this to this army for a long term.
Right, because you could do this play style
Yep.
for a little bit, or this
Yep.
this build for a while. And then
We don't have a lot much more about this because it's not one of our most knowledgeable
Right.
armies, other than being whipped in tournaments every once in a while by it. The little model that started the whole thing,
Tilly.
Seraphin. And got our steggies up there. Don't mind the Mortarion. Seraphin was Tracy's first army, right?
It was. I saw Tilly in the box, obviously, at a game store, and I told Steve if I could play that, I would play the game.
And we switched from 40K to AOS as a house. So, Seraphin, now, they could argue lore-wise about truly being the good guys in the entire game.
Yeah. They are
Seraphin
simply there
players
to
could-
get rid of chaos.
Absolutely. If you're looking for the good guys in the game, Seraphin's your answer. They exist to get rid of chaos, and they were brought back for that reason.
The lore's changed a little bit.
It has changed a little bit in the new book,
So.
but that is that's the original coming back to these realms. Looks, you'll look at the images. If you like dinosaurs,
Come on, they're dinosaurs riding dinosaurs.
Tracy loved the looks. I like the looks. That's not the reason I'm as interested in them. I'll talk about flexibility in the game. There's also flexibility in list building. And I think Seraphin is one of the things that you can, this is a good and a bad, I'll say that. You can build it multiple different ways.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
The bad from that is, this is a warning on an army that you can spend a lot of money on models, and you wasted a bunch of money on things you're never going to use.
You don't have cohesion with. So you go this way or you go that
Absolutely.
way, and then you have part of your army that you had originally bought that you're not using.
They're not the worst army on this list for that. We'll talk about that coming up soon. But you have a potential to waste a lot of money if you're just buying for looks.
Right.
And then you realize you want your build to go one way or another.
Yeah, this would be a good army to buy the battle tome first,
And look
read
at-
through it, put your army together ahead of time, and then buy from that list.
Or watch videos also.
Yeah.
One example is, it all came out with this new book, and everybody was thinking about, oh my gosh, Stegodons can be battle line. Stegodons can be battle line. Yeah, we tried that. That's not the build I'm going anymore. So we have 4 up there. We got 6 Stegodons, and I just sold one online. So we had 7 prepared for an old Stegodon build.
I didn't care. It looked really
Yes.
cool.
She can't make eye contact, because she make eye contact, and there's a package in the mail for her with AOS stuff. A lot of people out there saying if my girlfriend or wife would play, same thing would be happening. But, all right, let's look at, we've talked about speed. They're flexible. Some things are quicker. Skinks are fast as can be if that's your game. So you can play a fast game with them.
You can, yeah.
Other than that, I'd put them as moderate.
Yeah, I would say they're kind of right in the
They're
middle. Yeah.
moderate. Magic.
Lots of magic.
This is the biggest controversial statement I'm gonna say right here. Lord Croak right now is the most powerful magic caster in the game. And I'm gonna even say that, I also play Tzeentch. I'm gonna say that more than Tzeentch at this point. What he can do, the 4 spells and being able to get positives to casting and being able to unbind across the entire board, and then being able now to cast bound endless spells that only you can move, the opponent can't move. This is a powerful magic army.
Yes.
If that's your interest, this might be the army for you.
Yeah.
What do you think of shooting?
I wouldn't call it a shooty army. You can make your skinks that they have shots, and 16 inches is not a short shot. Their stats are not that great. But
I was going to say you're forgetting Tilly.
But that's not a whole, I don't consider that like units and units. But yes, I played against Tilly and she can shoot. She's got quite a range, quite a hitting ability, quite a save ability. They really did her justice.
No, she's amazing.
In this new book.
I wish we'd have bought 6 Bastillodons and not 6 Stegodons. And if you put 2 of them, your whole army's not going to be based around shooting, but you can have a sniper unit.
With the Bastillodon, you will have a unit that is going to adapt, make the opponent adapt what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Because they are going to have to stay either outside of her range or they're going to have to take the hits.
Killing? Yes.
They're very killing.
Oh yeah, you buff Source Warriors and they come in and kill. There's a lot of, and there's so many different things in this army that can kill.
Yes.
So they can kill, and I really like them about that. Tanky? Yes. Checks that box also. You can buff Warriors and they're hard to take off the tabletop. Tilly's the most tanky unit in the entire game with a 1+ save. So you can make a wall of Bastillodons to help support things. Saurus Guard are very tanky at helping Lord Croak stay alive.
Yeah, because they can take the wounds off of your hero.
So if you want to play a durable army also, Seraphin's got it for you right now. Flexibility, this entire battle tome is flexible. You can go with the Coalesced, or you can go with Starborn, not going to get into that. The Starborn aspect will still allow you to summon, do Lords of Space and Time, and put things across the tabletop. And then that's just in the builds. You can build big, strong things. You can have skink army. Somebody's going to bring 100 skinks to a tournament one time and just see how that goes. So a lot of flexibility in the builds. And then on the tabletop, it's not like a tier 1 of flexible armies, but it's close. It's up there.
Yeah, I think this is a well-rounded army. I think it's great for new players. I think, like Steve said, though, if you're just starting out and you're getting ready to buy models, a good place to start would be with the battle tome so that you can figure out what you want, how you want to play this before you start buying models. But other than that, you have a lot of different ways you can go, a lot of different play styles that it will support, and it looks super cool.
Looks super cool. For new players, if you're looking at getting into this, the Thunder Lizard was the big rave early on, and everybody was talking about and getting all the Stegodons and everything else. Personally, I've gone with the Kotal's Claw build, which is much more based around warriors and buffing warriors. So right away, if you're looking into this, don't just jump to the big things. I personally would recommend a lot of the small things with big things as support. Look at the Battle Tome, watch some YouTube videos of some gameplay. Painting.
I think they paint really well. I've used a lot of contrast on them. The newer models that we've gotten, I've used the traditional. There's a lot of flexibility here and they just look amazing. They're very bumpy models, so they take paint really well and they really do allow for you to do some dry brushing and make them really stand out and pop.
Things like warriors are a great place to start painting models.
Absolutely. My very first model I painted was warrior. Yep.
Warriors are a great place to start painting models. So their skin's easy to paint, unlike Fire Slayers and Witch Elves.
Right.
So painting wise, I think this is a great place for people to start. Travel, once again, that's going to depend upon what type of army you make.
Right.
If you're making a heavy warrior one like I am with a couple bigs, they're easy to travel. So that shouldn't stand in your way either.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why travel would be a problem.
Yeah.
I think they're fairly easily transported.
Thumbs up on Seraphin. Moving from one of my armies that now I would consider bringing to a tournament to the other one that I have brought to the most recent tournaments, Sylvanath. This lovely guy, Durthu and Sylvanath.
Yep. I actually bought them for myself.
We got them for because you love the looks.
I did. I love the looks. I played them, and they're a little too tricky for my skill level, I think. Personally.
It's once again matching your playstyle.
Right.
And Sylvanath requires a certain type of playstyle, I think, really to play them well. The models look fantastic.
They are.
I'll give you one reason for new players to consider it. Then I'm going to give you a big reason for them new players not to consider it. There is not an easier army to paint than Sylvanath.
It is true.
You can spray them with Wraithbone, hit them up with some contrasts, and you've got an army painted like that.
Yeah.
They're simple to paint. Price point cost, you'd think it wouldn't be that expensive. Triads and everything else. Then you have to buy all those Awakened Wildwoods.
Yeah.
And
you have to transport all those Awakened Wildwoods.
I did not take them to the LVO because we were flying and it was going to be so difficult to take the woods. Once I got there, I realized I could have just taken templates and everybody would have been fine, but I didn't know that going into it. And check with your tournament organizer beforehand before you were to
Make sure that's okay, yeah.
Awakened Wildwoods are not cheap. One of the styles of playing them well is to really expand Awakened Wildwoods. So this can be a very expensive army to get into. And I think new players need to consider that. Magic's okay. It's an add-on. They're not a magic casting army.
I guess that's why I said it's okay. They have it, sure. But I don't think it's the driving force behind choosing them.
You play a Lariel. She's got some better magic. I still have not put her together yet.
See, we haven't played her.
Oh, she's on the paint table. Yeah. I've got her primed. I can't wait to get her done. Speed. I really don't know how to rate this because in the games where I've won with Sylvanath, board control, which is the reason you want speed, has been one of the primary reasons why. But it really hasn't been because of speed. It's been because I've been able to drop a wood and you can move between the woods.
Right.
So they don't necessarily need the speed if you can drop woods. People put things in places and stop you from dropping woods. It gets back to the regular speed.
Or you get a table that has a lot of terrain on it.
The last tournament we went to, far too much terrain on the tabletop. If I'd have known that, I wouldn't have bought Sylvaneth. I'd have brought somebody else. So speed's misleading. They're all right. They're not bad.
It's kind of a non-factor here because it's really one way or the other. It could go either way.
Yep. Your big guys like Durthu are slow without the woods, and your Kurnoths can be a little slow, but your Dryads and stuff aren't. And you got tree revenants that can pop around the board also.
Right.
So they do board control a different way than speed. Shooting. They're not a shooting army.
They're not. They have some bows, but they're not a shooty army.
Nobody's taken Kurnoth bows. If you're new, don't make Kurnoth bows. 3 swords, 6 scythes. Don't bring bows on Kurnoths. Other things have some shots. Tree Lord Ancient and Durthu have some shots medium range, but they're minimal. And they've never had an impact on the game. They've never had any impact in the game. No. So I would say shooting, no. This is not a shooting army at all. Killing?
Oh my gosh. Durthu is probably the hardest one model hitter that I've had to face.
I did 48 wounds in one attack with Durthu one time.
Yeah.
48 wounds. Durthu has slaughtered groups, but once again, you have to work and get the experience of how to time that. If you don't, Durthu will get killed and knocked off the board. On the other hand, your Kurnoth hunters, they do a tremendous amount of damage too. And just the other day,
we just played with that 9 Kurnoth hunter.
I did the 9 sides option that people are talking about.
Overkill.
Kill the Terrorgeist and 3
3 of the flayers.
The Crypt Flayers. Just like that.
One,
just walked in.
Yeah.
Whoop.
Oh my gosh.
Take your toys off the table.
I know, they weren't even wounded.
So they can be killing. Tanky, shockingly enough, they can be. You get Dryads in the woods, and they can be very difficult to remove from an objective.
And the Kurnoth hunters.
Nothing could be almost more tanky other than Tilly than the Kurnoth hunters when they get Tanglefoot. So they provide a lot of different options. Other than that, they do have some summoning. That's some of their magic abilities is to summon and drive it, Dryads. So they do have some flexibility, and they do provide you some options.
Yes.
The flexibility is also in the book. There are so many different builds, and then there are so many different glades you will take, even with the same build.
Right.
I'm still torn.
Right.
Do I want to try the Dreadwood and be able to teleport?
There's a lot of good ones, too.
Absolutely.
Some of the armies have a good build, but it's a good build. This one has so many good builds.
I get confused. Which of the glades I want to take? Dreadwood is one that some people are winning in tournaments. That's where you can teleport a guy for a command point. Being able to teleport 9 Kurnoth hunters with scythes, scary.
Very scary.
Winterleaf, exploding 6s, on your hits for the whole army, scary. Harvest Moon, letting this guy attack and then back up and not be attacked back, scary. I get confused as to which army I want to bring.
But this is exactly the reason why I don't play Sylvanath. To me, that is too much. So if you are a new player and you really are new to tabletop gaming in general, I would not recommend this army because there's so much good stuff there, but you really have to know what you're doing to put it together well.
And then let's talk about competitiveness.
Oh my gosh.
There's so much good stuff there, and there's still a mid-range competitive army.
Yeah, they are.
You can hear about all the great things they can do, and you can go to a competitive tournament, and you can maybe you got the right draws, you get to a 4-1. You might leave 2-3.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to go 1-4, but you might leave 2-3. You're going to be on that 3-2, either potentially going either way. And the 4-1s, and again, a highly competitive tournament is really, you have to be a really, really great player, very experienced in the army, and get the draw you're going your way.
And you brought the most boxes to the tournament because you had to bring all your woods and all your models and all of that.
Those are the biggest downsides. I don't know if Sylvanath, other than being able to paint easily, is the right place to start. I would not recommend it.
I think you almost have to already have your playstyle established.
Absolutely.
Before you're
You have to see him played and know it matches your playstyle.
Right.
You had played quite a few armies.
I have.
We got it for you. You played it and you went,
It was too much for me.
And I was sitting there going,
No, I played against him and he was like...
yeah, that video where she took out Arkham the Black with that strike in the very first turn.
Yeah.
You know, that thing can happen.
Yeah, that's Sylvanath.
Now on to the poster child of the game. Stormcast Eternal. Quite a bit of this we still need to paint.
Yeah, you'll see him in every book, every poster.
Stormcast Eternal. I still have a couple of big Stormcast items I have not put together or necessarily painted yet. Why not? You know why not? The most disappointing thing about Stormcast, they have the biggest battle tome in the game. They've got a selection of armies. You have so many different models you can choose from.
Yep.
And for a new player, there are gorgeous ones that you might say, I want that and I want to play that. You've got some Stormcast guys you'd love to play.
I would. I'm always drawn to those animal ones.
The riders,
the
many
mounted,
of the riders, the mounted.
yeah.
You'd love to, a whole Palador mounted army would be awesome.
Yeah.
Which model did I bring out for Stormcast? All you need to know is a long strike crossbow. That's pretty much it. That, maybe an evocator. That's about it.
If you've listened to this whole video and you're like, but where's the shooty? Where's the shooty? That's the shooty.
It's disappointing to me that a battle tome that is so huge, if you go to tournaments, you basically see the exact same army on table after table after table after table. And one is because it can be so good.
It is good.
A friend of ours from St. Louis area finished 8th at the LVO with his, and we've played against him a couple times, and some good competitive games, but it's just... It's the Stormcast shooty is phenomenal. Now, real quick about lore. Yes, they're the poster child. They're the good guys of the game. Nagash doesn't think so, but because he's stealing no souls. But they are. They're also the good guys of the game. If you like knights, you want to see that knight aspect, and you want swords and all that type of stuff, this could be the army for you. They're easy to paint. They really are. They're easy to paint for new people. That's also a positive.
Yes.
Cost, it can be incredibly expensive if you get into this army. You might have a back room full of models that you'll never play. A shelf down below full of unpainted models you'll never paint because you know you'll never play. There's so many wasted figures in this line that if you're going to get into this, pay attention to what you'll play.
Right.
And spend your money wisely.
This would be another one because even if you like this unit and this unit, you might not be able to play them together.
Correct.
So this is another one of those that I would recommend you buy the battle tome first, choose your army or make your list from that, and then go buy your list.
And watch games that are being played and talk with people.
Yes.
But it is a very easy to paint, very straightforward.
Fairly easy to transport.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, this is why I took it to the LVO because it was so easy to transport.
Right.
A whole bunch of long strike crossbows, evocators, and evocators, evocators. I say that wrong all the time. And liberators. I mean, that's pretty much what it was, the couple of heroes.
Right.
Speed, with the ability to teleport around, they're not fast per se. I guess if you were going to ride all the beasts, you could, but nobody plays that.
Right.
But they're not necessarily a fast army per se, but there are ways they can get board control. So you don't necessarily have to be the fastest army with them because of that. Multiple ways you can get board control.
Well, and if you're playing long strike crossbows, you don't really have to move anywhere. You can just shoot them anywhere they are.
Magic, all right.
Yeah, they have some really good spells.
They've got some good spells.
That endless spell of theirs, that comet. Oh my god.
Early on, it was scary. After a while, everybody figured it out about it. You let it land, you run away from it, and then it sits there. But early on, when it hits you, it's like, oh my gosh. But there's some good supportive spells and some stuff that goes on there. But they're not a magic-heavy army. It's a magic support army. Killing? Well, let's put killing and shooting together. The long strike crossbows will kill anything. Anyway, I've seen ballista builds that will also kill anything in the shooting.
And their shots do good damage with good rend, as opposed to, earlier I said that about the skinks. I'm like, yeah, they get a lot of shots, but they do 1 damage, no rend. Yep. These guys are going to do damage.
They're going to do damage. Also killing, evocators can kill.
Oh,
They can just kill. So that's a unit that can just kill. So they do have killing. Tankiness, you can look at an individual model and say you can get a great save and everything else. The reason I question their durability at times are you don't end up having a lot of models on the tabletop.
Right. Well, and that comes with also ability to take points.
Absolutely.
You know.
Which we didn't
even
talk about that strategy-wise play style, you know. But it is very hard for them at times to take objective points because even though for new players maybe that's not the most important thing, but maybe it is. But it's really hard because they just don't have a lot of models.
Right, you get units of 5s.
Real quickly, looking back on that, Daughter's Fire Slayers can be a limitation. Just about all the other ones have large enough units they can take points. It's not. I think they're all pretty similar. This one can be a limitation. I think it's a good place to start, but you got to be smart about it.
You do. You almost have to already know about them before you decide to play them.
Yes, and be prepared when you show up at the local game store with 12 long strike crossbows. Everybody wants to kick you out.
Right.
That's that happens.
True.
That happens. But
because that goes with their competitiveness.
That goes with the competitiveness. Yeah. That's it. Stormcast Eternals. It might be a good place to start, but do the research.
The research first. Yes. Yes.
Yep.
I think they're very doable for a new person, though.
Great for painters.
Yes.
To start
I think
with.
that, to have a nice looking army right off the bat.
Okay. There are 2 more armies in order. We limited armies to armies that have battle tomes. Cities.
Cities of Sigmar. I really was attracted to this army or this battle tome because I wanted to do an all-elf army. And I love the models. I thought they were beautiful. I have really kind of had a hard time getting behind them, though, and spending the time painting them that they're going to take because, again, I am more competitive than sometimes I like to admit. And I really cannot figure out how to put together a build that's going to be really, really tough to beat.
And I think you hit the reason why I'm going to highly recommend new players stay away from Cities of Sigmar as their first choice. You have to be able to figure that out. Cities of Sigmar is a great book for veteran players who have models that they did not have another way to play and to bring them on. And veteran players who understand their models and have played with them on the tabletop. There are some tremendously strong builds that can come out of that.
Yes.
It takes somebody who knows those models and has invested time and everything else to figure that out. Right. Without it, the tome's so big and so confusing, you could end up, you're basically walking down the street with mismatched socks. I mean, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
It's you gotta coordinate your wardrobe with them and know how to do that.
Because you have everything from dwarves to steam tanks to elves to monsters like the War Hydra and things like that. So you have all of these different models that can be put together in all these different ways that you have to really kind of understand them going into it. Even, I mean, I have a couple years under my belt and I'm still really struggling with it.
And for the Cities players that might be screaming, going, no, they're the best, everybody get into it, I'm going to stroke your ego for a little bit. If you're doing good with Cities, that's a statement of how good you are with
right.
it,
I think that's
and
true.
your knowledge and experience. We're talking about brand new players. I don't think this is a good place to start whatsoever.
Yeah,
I do.
Don't. I have an entire Living Cities ready to go. As a matter of fact, this was a Christmas present for me because it was going to be in my Living Cities army, and I'm just really having a hard time motivating myself to get it done.
All right, with that, we only have one more army left in order that has a battle tome, and that is an army we do not have.
We can't even say it.
Right. Everybody was saying Caradrian, and it's
Caradron
Overlords, KO. These are space cloud flying steampunk dwarves. I'm not a fan of the image or the look whatsoever in a fantasy setting, and I don't know too much more about them other than that. Do know that before the last battle tome, if you said what's the weakest army in the game, the old KO, people would say, well, KO. People would bring them to a tournament, say, brought KO, and say, oh, you must really love them. You know, that was kind of the... Now, we're hearing a lot different. I don't think time's got to tell that they are powerful shooters now. So they're unique. I don't want to talk you away from it if you love that look.
Right.
If you love that look, they are now, from what I'm hearing, a competitive army. Not a championship winning army, but a competitive army.
Hold your own, yeah.
That if that's what you love, is that look, and you want to have people flying around on these battleships shooting at people, go for it. I think they might be an expensive army to potentially real world buy, if some of those ships, but you're also not buying the massive hordes of boxes of everything else.
Right.
So I don't even know that well enough.
Yeah.
But we thought we'd mention them from this point.
And I, as a traditionalist in the fantasy world, I have a hard time with the guns and the shooting of the KO army. So that's why I was not attracted necessarily to them.
But it has changed. A year ago, we would have said, stay away. Absolutely stay away.
Right, absolutely, yes.
We knew somebody who got new into the game, bought them, played a couple games, was at the one, the married couple, and the guy was like, I'm done. I hate this game, I'm out. And he quit. And what we want to do is inspire people to want to play the game more.
Right.
I don't think that's the case
I
anymore.
don't think it is the case. And I do know some people who play KO who are diehard. They love them. And if you're that kind of player, that's awesome too. We just don't have any input to give you on that.
So that's it. There's a theme I want to say. I should have maybe said this at the beginning, but I'm going to say it now is, ultimately, this game, you've got to find the fun. And there are so many different ways to find the fun in this game. We're hoping that this helps a little bit for some new players think what they might want to buy. Maybe it'll spur on some conversation in the commentary section or on our Facebook page about what other people think about armies. Just asking everybody to be polite about that. We're not experts, and you can totally disagree with us on some of these armies. We even don't agree on some of this stuff on some of these armies. But that's a great part of this game. And with that, we hope to get a couple of these out, all 4 factions. We might combine a couple of them because they're not as big as Order. We haven't made that decision yet. And then we do hope to get another battle report out to you somewhat soon. But with the time crunch that we're going to be going through with this, our battle reports, I think we're going to just pick some fun armies that we like playing, that we don't have to do all the research and worry about how these played competitive-wise, and just bring some fun to the game, which that's a good thing also.
Right. Yes.
With that, I'm Steve.
And I'm Tracy.
And we are
the Partners at War.
And
keep playing.
Just keep playing. Is that it?
I can never remember.
You always forget that. See ya.
You know, it's just a difference of if they have 1 axe or 2, or if they have a shield or if they have a spear. It's not as obvious, the differences between the units.
Yeah, it's very, very bland. Bland is it's not monogamous. I really got to cut that out. A bunch of monogamous dwarves.